But yeah, let's just start off. I mean, you and I have known each other for like 12 years, but I know your story, but how did you even get into the real estate game? Because no one grows up, as they say, I want to be a loan officer, I want to be a realtor.
So few people like it's their first choice. It's always second or third career, right?
Yeah.
For real estate or mortgage. I found my way into real estate because I found myself interested in real estate, like on the investor side. So I was going to school, let me rephrase that. Like I'm going to school as an adult, right? So I'm working at the time for GE Financial, and I've got a decent job, and I've kind of figured out that I can't really work. I can't have a corporate job. Like my personality is like not really going to allow for me to excel in that world. And so I decided to go back to school and just learn about business, just because all I knew is I wanted to be in business for myself on some level. So I'm going, and for the first time ever, I'm taking school seriously, like college, and just going to community college. But I met this guy. What I found out later is he taught to give back. He only taught like a semester or a class or two every semester. And he comes in one day, and the whole class was basically about a business plan. He comes in one day and he's like, hey, we're not going to talk about whatever we're supposed to talk about that. He's like, we're going to talk about real estate and money. I was like, got my attention. And he just starts drawing out like how to make money in real estate, being an investor, and how real estate builds wealth over time. And I was like, dude, holy shit, like eyeballs opened. And so after class, I said, hey, that was amazing. I think this is what I've been looking for. Could we get coffee? Can I buy you breakfast, something? Wow. And he said, yeah, of course. So a couple weeks later, we go to breakfast or coffee. I mean, we went to a breakfast spot. We just both happened to have coffee. And luckily he convinces me, he's like, cause I'm like, I just want to be a real estate investor. What this guy was doing is he was living the rich dad, poor dad life. Like if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad or Cash Flow Quadrant, like that's how he lived his life. And so that's what I was like. I was super attracted to that. Luckily he convinced me, he's like, listen, you can't like just quit your job. You're not going to just be an investor and you're going to start making enough money to live on tomorrow. He's like, he's like, you're working for 5 more years. I want you to know that. And I was like, oh, okay. So I took every class this guy taught for the next 3 or 4 semesters. What I found out at that breakfast or that coffee was that he was authorized to teach from the Rich Dad Company. And also he got those classes, so you got college credit for him. So he taught at South Mountain Community College. Wow. So I actually took like the ABCs of real estate investing through him. And then he taught a class another semester on like cash flow quadrant. There was one other that I don't remember the name of right now, but basically if he was teaching the class, I registered for it. And so my simple mind I came to was like, I know I want to be in real estate. I know I don't want my corporate job anymore. Like, even though truthfully I had a good job, I was overpaid. I had turned down a decent promotion, which would have put me into like the GE management program. But when they came to me with that, I was like, you have to pay me this much. Otherwise my answer is no. And I set a number I knew they weren't going to pay because I was like, I'm going to have to give up the opportunity of my future if I do this. And I don't want to. And I had some people in my life that were like, I would say not happy with that decision, but I knew that I couldn't do that. And so luckily what he said to me about like needing to work for 5 years stuck in my head. And so my simple mind was like, I'll just get a job in real estate. And so that's why I got a real estate license.
Wow.
I didn't know anything about selling real estate. I just was like, oh, I'll figure out how to get a deal. And then I'll probably figure out how to get another deal. I'll just figure it out. And you probably just I didn't know how to get business, but my thought processes was, I'm going to get a job in real estate. That was it. Because all I wanted to do was like, I just wanted to be a real estate investor. I didn't know anything about anything. So
that's awesome.
That's literally how it started. So, and of course my timing was, by the time I realized this was just gnawing away at me, it was the middle of 2007. So anybody who knows what happened in 2007 has the same response you just had, which is like, what are you doing?
What a great time to get in.
I mean, I had friends.
But you knew no better.
I knew no better. I literally had friends try to prevent me from doing it. Like, dude, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
This is a big mistake. You should have got in like 7 years ago.
Uh-huh. You
Now's
missed
the,
it.
yeah, yeah, literally, you missed
Right.
it. And I was like, no, I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I jumped in, and it turned out to be like that's an advantage. Like I
Right.
got to learn when it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't because I didn't know any better. So that's just what I built my business in.
Yeah. Well, and I know how you built it, but when you built it during that hard time, learning a skill that not many agents even had.
Yeah, I did a deal. I did like 2 deals for friends, or one friend and one referral on the buy side, and then my now business partner comes to me with this thing called the short sale, and it's a client of his. He's getting ready to get married and go on his honeymoon. And think about it, it's 2007. He's like, I really need help. His BlackBerry wouldn't work outside of the country. Totally dating
Right.
myself, right? And so he's like, can you help? I was like, sure. I'm like, I got a real estate license. I got nothing to do.
No problem.
Of course I'll do it. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So my third deal was actually Fred's listing that I co-listed with him. And I'm telling you, the timing was perfect. An offer came in a day or two before his wedding. And so he was gone. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I figure out the short sale thing. I got that short sale closed. And pretty much, as you know, that was my first short sale, and probably the next 1,000 out of the next 1,000 transactions we closed together, we ended up officially partnering together early the following year. Probably 950 of them were short sales.
Wow.
So we just built our business. We eventually partnered together because we were both doing, from that point, you were either doing REOs or short sales, or you weren't taking listings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just the way it was. Or you took listings that didn't sell. And so we both found ourselves doing more short sales, and it wasn't fun. And so we eventually were like, we also, I should say too, his brother had a real estate license and kind of worked for both of us, like part-time, helping us out with some of the administrative stuff with the short sales. And so a couple months later, we're like, hey, what would it be like if we rented an office together? I had kind of recruited him unknowingly to our brokerage. And so we were at the same brokerage. We're like, what would it be like if we shared the expense of an office? We shared the expense of paying his brother full time. And then we helped each other with our short sales. Because we were both doing it from home at that time. It was not fun.
Right.
You know, you're getting hung up on
Can we
multiple
share
times a
in
day.
the misery together?
Basically,
Right.
that's what it was. And so early 2008, it's February of 2008, so 16 years ago this month, we started officially kind of working together.
Wow, happy Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Look, I've seen a lot of teams, and both on lending and real estate, it usually does not work out. Like the majority don't. Like, how do you guys make it work for 16 years?
You know, I get that question a lot more than most things. Is the partnership, every year I get a random call from somebody that says, hey, call Kevin or Fred. They're the only like non-married or non-related business partnership that we've seen work out,
Yeah.
Long period of time. I say this, number one, we've had a lot of luck. Like there's just some dumb luck involved. I don't know how to explain it. We got married. So worth noting, my wife and Fred have been friends since second grade. Like I know Fred because of my wife.
Okay.
So there's some there's some luck there.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his wife got married just a few months before my wife and I got married. So from a life, what's the word, stage, we've been in the same stage of life the whole 16 years, right? Like we got engaged within weeks of each other prior to me getting into real estate. And then we got married to our wives within months of each other. So, and then kids were a little bit further apart, but his son is only a little bit younger than my youngest daughter, Zoe.
Right.
So I do think that's an advantage too. That's also some of the dumb luck at play. And then I think we've done some things that put us in the way of luck where, I'll give you an example. We didn't start out to be business partners. We were trying to help each other with short sales. And what we decided to do when we decided to work together, we literally drove to Yuma, Arizona, where I'm from. And because we both love Mexican food. So I was like, dude, the best Mexican food on the planet is in Yuma. It's called chili pepper. Let's just drive there and hammer this out. So we drove to Yuma. And we looked at all the listings we had. At the time, we had a combined 12 listings. It's nothing special. It's 2008, right?
Yeah.
And so we said, hey, how about this? Let's work on a deal. let's, what should you get paid for doing, for helping me, and what should I get paid for helping you? And we ultimately came to an agreement. Like, we already had these 12 deals that we brought in, so we had an agreement on those. I think maybe it was like, we're only going to compensate the other person 15% of the commission,
Mm-hmm.
but we were going to split the expenses of everything we had 50-50.
Wow.
And then going forward, we were going to do 80-20. So if I brought in a deal, I got 80% of the income. If he brought in a deal, he got 80% of the income. And we'd pay each other these small little amounts
Mm-hmm.
to make some calls to the lender to help each other out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the expenses, 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we did that is we had both come out of some, I'll use the word partnership loosely, situations where we felt like we were the only responsible ones.
Right.
And so we started out being very mindful of that. And what happened is, over time, we just inched those numbers together. So it was like, literally, like, we had an email with a Word doc with our agreement on it. We emailed it to each other. One of us emailed it to the other person that day. And then we responded when it was time to go to 75-25. We're like, hey, update to this as of this date. It's now 75-25. And then it was like 70-30. And then it was 65-35. And then it was 60-40. And then it was, I'm not even joking here, then it was 55-45.
Wow.
We went to 50-50 3 years into our partnership. I remember specifically is March of 2011. The reason why we did it is because it was too hard on her. We still stay competitive about it. We're
Right.
if he brought in actual more volume, I'd be like, yeah, but I got more deals. Like, I brought in 11 deals, you only brought in 10 or something like that, right? So like we're competitive about it. We took it to 50-50 because we had more staff and we were a lot more leveraged at that point. And so we did it to ease it up on the staff. Neither one of us cared about the money at that point.
Right.
It was about, we made
Really
this,
the tracking
we
and
made
splitting
them
of
track
things.
it, but we didn't make them do the math anymore for the commissions. I will note that we also agreed from day one that if we created something because of us working together, that was 50-50 from the jump. So like, as an example, we started teaching classes in March of 2008. And that started generating referrals for us right away. Those we split 50-50 from the get-go. One of the things we did right away was, if, like, let's say you sent us a deal. Like, let's say you were a homeowner and we both kind of knew you. We never fought over that. It was 50-50.
Right. Yeah.
I remember there was somebody in Fred's sphere. Like, for sure I know this lady because of Fred. And I was at an event. I was talking to her she was asking me some advice on what she should do with her couple properties and what a short sale would be like. And so I was giving her some advice. And Fred took the listing like a week or two later. And I was like, oh yeah, her name's Diana. I was like, I saw Diana at this thing. I was talking to her about it. I'm glad she did something. That's all I was saying. I was like, I'm glad she took action.
Right.
Like, Fred instantly was like, well, this one's 50-50. It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Dude, we've never once, people like look at us like, you guys are weirdos. We are, but
not
also,
that
like,
way.
we've never once fought over $1.
Right.
People like will say, like, you guys must fight, right? Or who's the final, there's a final decision maker. I'm like, yeah, both of us.
Right.
We're both the decision maker. It is truly 50-50. We've never fought over $1, never will. We've disagreed. We've had different opinions. We just never fight over it. Like, it's never, what's more valuable to us is where we're going and kind of the end goal.
Yep.
And I think that is kind of where I said there's some dumb luck involved. I think it's part of the stage of life. Like, that is, I think, helped aid us in never sort of being too far off.
Never thought about that. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
When you think about, like, resolution of stuff, do you guys have a process for that? Like, hey man, let's connect. Hey, let's talk.
No, we just talk things through. Like, so to this day, we still share an office. I mean, you know that. You've been around. We literally sit back to back. Now there's a little more room between the back of our chairs, which is nice. But we still to this day sit in. So there's this, like, ongoing dialogue. Like, the conversation happens all day and all week and all month and all year.
Right.
And so we're always talking through things. We do have strategies for, like, figuring things out in the business, but from, like, a conflict resolution, there actually hasn't been conflicts. There's been disagreements on, say, strategy, disagreement on people. What tends to happen is one of us cares more than the other person. And the person that cares less always defers to the other person.
That.
Just as, like, cool, I see this is a big deal to you, let's do that. because there's peace in knowing that if that's not the right answer, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to go the other direction.
Right.
So what will happen is one of us will take the lead on stuff and we'll just go, yeah, let's go ahead. Feel free to take the lead on it. I don't mind. Like I was talking to you about our studio.
Right.
Fred was like, he was not big on that idea.
Mm.
And then I was like, nah. And then as I started talking with our buddy Chris and Dave about it more, and I went back to, he's like, yeah, go for it. I don't care. He hasn't lifted a finger for it. Not because he doesn't care.
Right.
In fact, it's funny because now he's kind of excited about it. But he also knew, like, there's a peace in knowing that if it doesn't work out, we'll just stop doing that and we'll fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I always joke, like, we make a lot of mistakes, and the only thing we do better than mess up and make mistakes is we stop doing that.
Yes.
So, and I think
pivot quickly.
Yeah, we do. Like, neither one of us are afraid to be wrong. We're not afraid to make a mistake because you can pretty much undo anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, at least in business.
Yeah. Well, several years ago, you made one of the biggest decisions that I remember you going through. You were flying around and trying to figure out where you wanted to go. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of movement even right now in both our industries. How did you guys end up making the decision to finally make a move to where you landed now?
Those are two different decisions. So, decision one was, do we leave Keller Williams Realty?
Mm.
That's the only brokerage I
do we even
belonged
make
to.
a move?
Yeah. And that decision was really easy. We looked up one day and it was like, this isn't home for us anymore.
Mm.
That's the best way I could think of explaining it. Is over a period of time we realized we'd kind of fallen out of love, if you will, and the value that we used to have from the company was no longer there.
So that was feeling or tangible or both?
Both for sure. So that was easy. It was like we knew we had to go find a new brokerage home. Keller Williams just wasn't home for us anymore. Mm. Now, what happened is it took us a little over a year to figure out where home was going to be. Partially because we were closed off to certain things, and we were really trying to make a good decision. So, luckily, we got some advice from someone. Like, I actually had a good friend and a mentor, and he was like, hey, he sat us down. He's like, I want you guys to think about this he's like, I know it sounds bad. He's like, I want you to think like you just went through a divorce, and you want to get married again, and now you have the experience of a poor relationship. What are your non-negotiables for your next relationship? Mm-hmm. What are the things? And this was something that his therapist had actually walked him through, and
right.
his divorce and then his second marriage, which is a very happy, long-standing marriage. And so we went, okay, so we literally came up with what are our non-negotiables? Like, what are the things we have to have in a brokerage? And we started using those three things as a filter. And we started filtering out brokerages.
Right.
So instead of just randomly going and talking to this company and this company and this company, we filtered them out. Ultimately, what happened is we didn't like any of our options, and we thought we were going to go independent.
Wow. And
so and at the time, as you know, we still sell real estate in more than just Arizona, but at the time, we were selling real estate in quite a few different states. And so we shut down part of our operation. We went, quite frankly, where are the locations we're not taking with us? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not opening it. Like, at the time, we had a team in Nevada. Mm-hmm. I was like, we're not opening a brokerage in Nevada.
Right.
And so there was 4 states left. And so we had created an entity in Arizona, one in Tennessee, one in California, one in Colorado. We're like, these are the agents we're taking with us. We'll go independent. And during that process, we're like, what are we doing? This is owning an independent brokerage was never on the roadmap. We were sort of doing it by default. So I literally said, guys, what the hell are we doing one day in our brokerage meeting? As we're going, we already had 2 of them launched and ready to go.
Wow. Jill,
as you know, who's worked with us for quite some time, she's got a broker's license in multiple states. We were ready to go. And we just kind of put the brakes on. We're like, that's not what we want. And so we stayed at KW a little while longer. And during this process, Curtis Johnson, who's a close friend and business partner, came to us, and that's when he made his move to eXp Realty. He tried to get us to go with him. We're like, dude, you have fun with it. I don't want anything to do with it. We're going to go open an independent brokerage. In 5 or 6 months from now, you let us know how. Well, we go to lunch every 5 or 6 months anyways. You can tell us how it's going. I hope it's going as good as you hope it will. And we'll regroup. And during that process was when we had pulled back And I'll never forget him. This is May 2nd, 2018. We went to lunch with Curtis because we were scheduled to. And for the first time ever, we were open to listening and learning about eXp Realty. And I made my decision that day. It took Fred and Ross one more meeting. And it took Fred one more meeting, I should say. We brought Ross, who, as you know, is like, he's worked with us on the operational side of our business since 2015. Ross he's a very different personality than the two of us. We're like, Ross is going to go with us to Curtis's office for this next meeting because he'll slow us down.
Right.
And he'll tell us if we're crazy. And Ross was like, no, this is definitely good. You guys should do this. And so in under 30 days from there, we lined up all the cards and made a move to EXP. That was June of 2018.
Almost 6 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool. So what were some of those non-negotiables that you wrote out for your next relationship?
So the non-negotiables were this: one brokerage per state. So at the time, not only were we selling real estate in multiple states, but multiple cities within a state. And that causes a lot of problems from an advertising standpoint. So a lot of people go around talking about expansion, and they don't know what they're talking about, because what you don't realize is, as soon as you're in a franchise system, if you've got agents in different brokerages, just because the franchise name is the same, they're different brokerages. So you've got problems with websites and anything that has to do with advertising. You got brokers with different sets of rules. I mean, we had some places with the same ownership, and the brokers had different sets of paperwork that they wanted to see. Like in Tucson, we were in 2 different offices, 2 different designated brokers, one owner, 2 different designated brokers, and they wanted different paperwork.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Forget about the consumer-facing nightmare of having different websites and things like that. So one brokerage per state was a non-negotiable. Another non-negotiable for us was, leave us the hell alone. Like, we wanted to go somewhere that there was something bigger to plug into if we wanted, but also leave us alone. I wanted the autonomy of doing my own thing without being voluntold what to do. So that we'd come from an area where there was like, you got voluntold to do things, and I wasn't, as you know.
I didn't want that anymore.
Yeah, that's not really my jam. Like,
Right.
That's why I don't work. That's why I don't have a corporate
That's
job.
why I'm not a GE.
Yeah, and so we literally, so we're like, it's got to be somewhere we can plug into. It's got to feel more entrepreneurial, I guess is what I'm saying. I could look it up. It's on my phone right now on my notepad, but I forget the third.
Yeah.
But those are the 2 that were most important to me.
I mean, it's a great lesson in anything, right?
Oh, no, I just remember the third.
Ready.
Our agents had to make more money, or more. It was more like they had to keep more of the money that they were making. So again, because we were in a franchise system, just because I had a deal, say, at my office in Tempe, didn't mean I had the same deal at my office in Denver. Or even worse, I had one deal in Tempe and another deal in Glendale, or one deal in Tucson and another deal on the other side of Tucson. So my agents were, and rightfully so, these were independently owned and operated.
Right.
So every broker owner wanted their kind of piece of the pie.
Yeah.
But it was cost prohibitive for the agents on our team.
Well, and it's clunky for them. Like,
Yes.
it's hard for them to comprehend. It's when it's streamlined and you remove friction, way easier.
Well, think about it too. Like, their peers on our team, and they're like, "Hey, how much do you pay the brokerage?" Like $7,500, and they're like, "Well, how much do you pay?" Like $4,000, or we pay $3,000. Yeah, and it's like, wait a second, that's not fair. And so that it just created issues for us.
Same across the board makes it easier.
Yeah, so just having like sort of one set of rules and one set of commission guidelines, if you will, or splits, the same everywhere, made life so much easier.
I like that. Yeah. Well, and it's easier for the agents. It's easier for onboarding. It's easier for retention. Everyone's just the same.
To this day, Jill, who runs our administrative world, 5.5, almost 6 years later, still thanks us probably once or twice a year for making the move, because administratively it made her life so much easier.
I bet.
Because there's one set of documents, there's one set of broker requirements per state. Like, she's not dealing with all these different things. It's one system instead of, at one point, like 10 different systems.
Right. Yeah. She's got to be loving that.
Yeah. So it's made her life so much easier.
Nice. All right, let's pivot. Let's talk about next level agents, because we're just fresh off that event a couple months ago. The live event that you did in Vegas pre-COVID, right? Like, it's for me, it's a phenomenal experience, and I've seen it grow. But how did that even start?
So no joke. The real story is this. There was other Facebook groups.
I
Right?
like real stories.
Okay. So there's plenty of real estate Facebook groups out there. I kind of thought they were all shit. I'm just being honest. I didn't like the conversations, and I was in a lot of them, and then I would jump out of them like, this is stupid. I really don't want to argue about a contract or talk about what CRM is best. Like, and so one day, I quite literally created a Facebook group. A couple people that owned one of the bigger, or probably still the biggest Facebook group in the real estate world out there, had gotten in some legal trouble for doing some unsavory things. And so I was like, I guess if there was a time to start another Facebook group, now's that time. So on a Saturday morning, I created a Facebook group and I texted Fred. And at the time we had a third partner, Cody, in that business. And I said, hey guys, we all now, three of us own a Facebook group together. And so we were like, okay. And this was one of those things. Fred was, first of all, Fred was in the hospital. His kid was being born. It's always easy to remember how old the Facebook group is because it's how old Freddie Penn is. Right. And so, but Cody and I were like, we were kind of geeking out on it. And Fred was like, what are we going to do with this? I was like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And probably for 6 months, he would ask me that. And I'd be like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And so, and he's like, okay, whatever. So Cody and I really kind of got it going. And probably about a year in, we were like, we realized there was this community building around it. Mm-hmm. We're like, what would it be like if we did an event? Because we're like, we didn't want to be like selling stuff in the group all the time and sort of like just there to hawk stuff to people. Because I don't like the whole. There's enough people selling picks and shovels in our industry. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be another guy who made money just selling picks and shovels to my peers. Right. And so we're like, what if we did an educational event? And so would that bring the community together? And kind of what coincides with that is one of the things I don't love about the industry, and this is not a knock on Keller Williams, this is all real estate companies, is they tend to only, not all, most companies tend to only highlight the people on stage that sort of like say the company line. Mm-hmm. They're a member of their coaching. They're, they want to talk about the models that company preaches. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. It's their company and it's their event. Yeah. But my opinion is there's a lot of people in our industry that are really smart that don't get the stage time that deserve it just because they do things differently. Right. And so I saw this as my chance to kind of curate content for the industry because I am always out talking to people. Mm. Like one of the things I've always gone to events from very early on in my career, and I talk to other agents and because I want to learn from them. I want to learn about them. I want to learn what makes them successful. And so we're like, what would it be like if we put together an event like that? Yeah. And I handpicked every single speaker. And it turned out great. And that first event in 2018 was like 225 people showed up. Mm-hmm. It was awesome. And then the feedback we got was, this was great. I wish it was 2 days. And so we did it again in 2019. We did it for 2 days that year in Vegas again. And I think we had like 450 show up to that one. Mm-hmm. You know what happened in 2020. Mm-hmm. In 2020, the event had to get first postponed and then canceled. And eventually that third partner, Cody, it just wasn't a fit for us to work together anymore. So he exited the partnership. And Fred and I kind of kept control of the group. Not really doing a whole lot with it, but we maintained ownership of it. And then this past year, 2023, we finally did another NLA Live. Did that in Scottsdale this time, like we were going to do in 2020. Mm-hmm. And did a 2-day event. And it was awesome. Like, tons of great feedback. And as you noticed, thank you. You were like one of the very first guys that like, I want to participate. Mm-hmm. How can I help in that? And I very strategically picked the speakers on stage. Mm-hmm. Like you don't get to be on stage because you write a check, right? Or because you like I don't sell coaching, so it's not you're not on stage because you're my coaching client. Promote me. You're on stage because I think you have something relevant to say and to teach the industry, and I think it's interesting, and I want to share that with the industry. And so, again, we just that's sort of the filter that we go through and put together. As you know, we had a chiropractor on stage. It's like a functional medicine doctor. Mm-hmm. Michael Burnoff was there talking about influence, and we had Pace Moore be there to talk about creative real estate. And then all these different real estate topics, leadership, you name it.
Hmm.
Like we just, try to put together a good mix of content.
Yeah, it was a good mix of people that were non-real estate, but then still affects them as just people,
Yeah.
right? They can also influence their real estate.
Yeah. I got a friend named Joe Polish who runs a company called Genius Network, and he's always talking about building. If you build a better entrepreneur, it's the same thing as like if you have a better entrepreneur, you're going to have better. The world's going to be better.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of the thought process.
Well, something you said to me, I don't know if you got this somewhere or came up with it, but if you put the right people in the right room, the right conversations happen.
Yeah.
And so that's a good example. Also, the room could even be your online room of your Facebook group because
Yes.
you put the right people in there, the right conversations can happen.
Well, that was kind of how we grew it initially. Was I manufactured it really. Is I would go to my friend. So I text my buddy Reed, who runs a mega real estate team as well, selling $100 million a year. And I'd be like, hey, dude, somebody just asked a really good question. This is the question. Would you go comment on it?
Mm,
And then so that would then lead to deeper
right.
conversation. So I'd go to, and of course, Cody, he runs a huge business too.
Mm-hmm.
We run a huge business. And so I would literally initially, I just would get people, I would manufacture the conversation to get really smart people in there who might have different opinions, different answers to give insight. Because I do believe, some of the smaller events, we do a lot more smaller events. And the thing I always say is like, if you just put smart people in a room and let them be smart, good things will happen.
Yeah.
And so I'm a firm believer in that, partially because some of the other events I kind of went to sort of growing up, there's always like one person in the room, like that's the wizard. We all have to listen to what he or she says, as opposed to creating a dialogue with the really smart people in the room.
Right. Yeah. Now talk about that, your micro events, so your mastermind and stuff.
Yeah.
How did that morph into that?
I think the same thing is I wanted to control. I didn't like where I was going. It stems from a desire to want to control the room, and not control in like a bad way, but from like I wanted to create the room that I wanted to be a part of. Because
Right.
every time I went to this event or that event, I'd be like, this part's good, but this other stuff, like I really don't like that. And just coming from like my viewpoint as an operator who's running a real estate business, who's got a life outside of real estate, who, also on just all these different things I'm interested in. Like I didn't want it to look like this one, we use the word mastermind in our industry a lot. It gets bastardized, I think. Most of those aren't really masterminds, they're classes with somebody teaching. And there's a time and place for that. Don't get me wrong.
But that's just not the right term.
But that's not a mastermind.
Right.
That's somebody teaching a class or who has an agenda of what they want you to hear. And again, there's value in that, but that's not what I wanted to be a part of.
Right.
So it really just kind of came from me wanting to create something that I personally wanted to be a part of. And I figured if I wanted to be part of it, it would probably be attractive to other people that I know in the industry that also want to be part of those conversations.
Right.
So we just started hosting little, like 30 to 35 people. It's, invite only. Like that's truly, and I do this in a way so I can kind of control the level of the conversation.
Right.
Because I'm not going to control the conversation. We're actually going to make it up as we go, which kind of freaks some people out when you show up and the agenda is blank. But to me, that is where the best conversations come from.
Yeah.
But if I'd done a good job of making sure who got in the room and screening people and very purposely mixing up the type of people that are in the room. Like,
Right.
Plenty of times I've had someone sit in the room that sold 1,000 homes last year, and they're sitting next to a solo agent that sold 100 homes last year. By the way, they both have amazing businesses, but very different.
Right.
Right.
And they're both willing to participate.
And they both have something to give back.
Right.
And so I found like instead of like keeping those people away from each other, I brought the conversation together.
Yeah.
And so, I literally just screen who gets in the room. And it's not like something we advertise. You won't find a link,
Right.
like floating around, like not anybody gets to come. And the way I do it is most people in the room I know. So number one, that allows me to make sure the conversation flows. So as the person facilitating the conversation in the front of the room, most of the time, I don't always do that. Nonetheless, if it gets to be a dry point or there's quiet, there's too much silence, I could be like, yeah, but Greg, you're really great at this thing with your database.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, this is when you need to speak up. Like, I'll literally call on people
Right.
in real
Because
time.
you know them.
Because I know them.
And you know their strengths.
Yes.
And, yep. Yep.
I'm taking the time to get to know them. And as long as I've got 80 or 90% of the people in the room that, like, I personally invited because I know them, the rest I can use, like, now if you come to me and are like, hey, dude, here's the deal. I'd love to have this guy come in or to your event. He's a really great friend. He runs good. That's fine. That's good enough for me.
Right.
You're a filter. You know who you and I know each other really well. I know you know what I'm about. I trust you. My answer is going to be yes.
Right.
But 80% of those people, I'm going to have actually personally invited to the room.
Nice. Now, how did the podcast happen? Because all these things kind of intertwine a little bit, but you started the podcast before the Facebook page.
So no, it was actually after
Shortly
the Facebook. Yeah. So the podcast's been about 5.5 years now. So I started that towards the end, fourth quarter of 2018.
I mean, and podcasts weren't big because they're popular, way more popular now, right? There's
way more now.
More to choose from now, less late before. But what made you even make the decision to go, did I need to do that or want to do that?
I always wanted to. So the thing but I thought it was harder than it is. Okay. So understand, I thought there was a technical component that kept me from doing it. But
like technical, like edit and launch and post and
I just didn't know what happens. Like, great. So you and I are having a conversation. Then what?
Now where?
I had no idea what that answer was. So, but what I did do is, again, going back to, I'm always going to events, talking to people, going to lunch with people, talking to them about their business, kind of always interviewing people because I'm curious. And so that's why I have the curiosity and the desire to do one. But as you know, Fred and I have been filming video content since 2009. Like literally November 2009, we read the book Crush It, started filming videos the next day.
Wow.
And one day, somebody in our office said, you know those videos you guys make every week? And we're just posting them on Facebook at this point. She's like, if you wanted, I could put those on a podcast for you. I was like, what do you mean? I mean, I literally didn't know what she meant. She said, I could take the video. And I said, you could take the video and make it audio? She goes, yeah, there's a separate file. I've got a program on my computer. I could take the audio file off and then we could upload it. I go to Apple Podcasts and stuff. She goes, yeah, it's really easy. So I looked at her. I said, so are you telling me that if I go talk to somebody on Zoom and I record it and then I just give you the recording, you can turn that into a podcast? She goes, yeah. I go, I'll be back. And I said, do whatever you have to do. She goes, well, we'd have to set up an account. I go, great, go do all that stuff. I'll be back. And I went and I started recording episodes.
Wow.
I just haven't stopped. Like 500 episodes later, I haven't stopped.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was
wow.
Partially, again, my desire to please my curiosity. Partially my desire to give a stage to people that don't have a stage. Like I'll say this, if you go look at the guests that have been on my show, now the vast majority of them are my friends. I know them. Not all of them. And I've had some famous people on, and I'll use the podcast as a way to like get in front of somebody that I want to learn from. But also, like, just they look different. They're literally like, instead of it all just being this one type of person, they like physically look different. They have different business models. They look different. Like, so I just have used it to sort of showcase, like, hey, there's a bunch of different ways to be successful in this business. Pick one. Yeah. She's doing it like this. He's doing it like this. Pick one. Yeah. You don't have to do it this one way that everybody in your because what happens at all brokerages is there's somebody doing things and then everybody assumes they've got to follow that person's model. And the bad part about real estate is that is also the good part is you can just model it and get some good results. The problem is that for a lot of people, if it's not built for your personality, it's not a business, it's a trap. Yeah. And so you build this trap for yourself, and as opposed to a business.
It's not a business; it's a trap. Yeah. That's good because it's long term. You just won't enjoy it either. You're
it's not going to be any fun.
Yeah, because if you do it towards what you're built for, way better.
Yeah.
Huh. Now, how did the book club? Last one. How did the book club? Because all these things to me is all marketing, right? Like for me, I just look at stuff as like marketing. Like, man, I'm gonna have a Facebook group, and yeah, they have all different purposes, but I see it. I'm like, man, that's great marketing. Like, how did the book club come about?
Book club came about with this. So every year I read a lot of books. I at least start a lot of books, and if it's
What's like a lot? Book a month, book a week?
anywhere from 10 to 25 books a year.
Okay.
So for me, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
And inevitably, there's one or two that I'm like, damn, that's so good. There's a book that moves me, and so I'll just buy a bunch of copies. I was buying a bunch of copies, like, I think of The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
Yeah.
When I spent 2 days with him in a small room, and then read the book, and I was like, this is amazing. So I bought like 50 copies, and I sent them to my friends. And then Michael Burnoff's book came out, Average Sucks. I bought 100 copies, and I just mailed them to friends because it made a big impact on me. And Die With Zero came out, bought 100 copies, and I sent it to friends. Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones came out. I read that. I was like, this is good. Bought 100 copies and gave them to friends. Well, Michael Burnoff actually said to me one time, he taught me this trick. He's like, dude, you really want to make an impact on people when you send them a book? He's like, don't just send them a book. Tell them why you're sending it to them. He's like, drop a note in there. He's like, people give me books all the time. And it's just like, great. Why do I want to read another book? I got enough books to read. He's like, tell them why. So I started writing notes, along the ways too. And then it came up with the desire for lack of a better word, we have a sphere of influence that's real estate agents. So we literally have a list of agents that we consider our sphere of influence, just like we do our buyers and sellers. And we had been thinking of like, how do we stay in touch? We quite literally give gifts to buyer and seller clients.
Right.
Like we quite literally give a gift a quarter to our top of the top. So we just went, we're already sending books, but like, how could you make a book club cool? It was Fred's idea. Is like, dude, what if we had a book club that was so cool that somebody said, how do I get to be a part of that book club?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And we're like, okay, well, I think the first thing is when you open, you know what? I remember I sent you that book, Giftology, and you said, what did you say to me? Do you remember?
Wow.
You said, wow, the presentation of this.
Yep.
And it was an amazing book. I got that from the
bag and the
I got
box.
that from the author of the book, by the way. And I was like, Greg's going to love this because he gives gifts. He's going to I knew you would appreciate it the way you did. And so I turned around and I gave that to you because I wanted you to see the gift, not necessarily the book. And so the first thing we thought of was like the presentation of the book. Like you could put a book in an envelope and mail it, or you could present a book to somebody.
Right.
So then we went on this mission to go, how would we do that? So we started finding literally box designers, and we're like, okay, so now we're designing boxes, and we're customizing boxes that fit these books as we're picking up books. And then I went, what would be the next thing we could do that would be cool? I'm like, oh, we should probably write them a letter and tell them why we're giving them this book, because otherwise it's just another book.
Yeah.
So it's a personally written letter, that we wrote out, and we're like, that's cool. We're like, how can we make it an experience? We're like, what if we got the author to talk about the book with us on like a private Zoom with our friends? And so that became the thing, is like, now, yes, so we pick a book. It's got to be a great book, by the way. I've read it already if I'm sending it out.
Right.
And then the author has to be willing to do a 1-hour Zoom with us. And the presentation of that whole thing is going to be off the charts, in my opinion. It's going to be like, it has to look like, I want you to open it, understand we're spending way more money on the presentation than the book itself.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's it. You got the presentation of it. I'm taking up room on your bookshelf. You're thinking of me now every day that you walk into your library or wherever your bookshelf is, because you've got this, you don't just have a book, you have a massive box that holds that book, that's got this letter that looks more like a wedding invitation than it does a letter.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing too, is we went all out we tried 3 different things now with the letter. We even, as you know, on the last one, we printed the letter on the inside of the box last time. And so, and then you have the opportunity to join a Zoom with the author of the book and talk about it for an hour. So we just went like, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
And we're like, who do we send that to? Well, we already knew. It's our sphere of influence. So it's agents that we've got tight relationships with, maybe referral relationships, agents that are in business with us at EXP, agents that we're just close with for whatever reason. But it's a mix of agents that we would consider our real estate agent sphere of influence.
Yeah, you're catering to your VIPs.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. No different than like I know what you're really great at. Like you're very clear. You use that term VIPs. I use the term A's. These are my A's.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, well, and then it's a fun way to interact. Number one, I'm gonna read the books anyways. Like, I'd rather just read them with my friends and create an experience for it.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, last one. What's next? Because I know you have this other project going that's getting finished up in the next couple days. Is that the next big thing?
Yeah, I keep telling my friends, like, you might want to unfollow me. There's going to be a whole lot more Kevin on your screen. And so, no doubt, like I said, Fred and I have been doing video content since 2009. So it's not like video is new to us. But we've made a more concerted effort and a decision to go, hey, specifically as it pertains to Instagram and YouTube, like we're making a more focused effort there to create more content from an education and value standpoint for the industry.
So what is that going to look like?
It's going to look like a lot of reels and just free education. I mean, it's education. It's what we've been doing for the last 15, 16 years. Giving out content. Like for us, it's a way to stay in touch with the people we know and the people we don't yet, and as well as bring in people that we don't yet know.
Yeah, and you're actually creating a whole environment for them to come to.
Yeah, so myself and Fred partnered with two of our other, I'll call them EXP partners, Dave Z and Chris Bowers, and we're like, let's just build a studio together. So it's almost done. We've got a studio built out. I have a couch and I have a couple chairs, basically so we can have different sets. And so we can come in there like this, and there's professional equipment where we can, if somebody, number one, we can create content for ourselves, but also there are so many agents around us that we're in relationship with, whether because they're at EXP with us or that we're just friends with them, and they need a place to film. Like they need a place to go record their content, or they want to get started on their content. And so now it's like, cool, we're going to use it ourselves, but also you can come use it too, because it's not like we're going to use it all day, every day. We're going to use it 4 hours a month. Like there's another 156 hours a month that the room's open that our friends can use it.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Just kind of a place as a hub for them to go create content, not be so afraid of it, or not to have to worry about finding a location. Because, that can be a challenge for people that want to create content, is actually finding the place to go shoot it.
Yeah. Well, you created the platform. You created it through the Facebook group. You've created it in your live group. You've created it now with the podcast and now with the studio.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's just the impact you're having on the industry is just amazing.
I hope so. That's what it's about, because I mentioned Curtis Johnson briefly earlier. But the reality is I met Curtis in June of 2008. So I've been licensed for basically 12 months. And not only did I meet Curtis that day, but I met a lot of other people, Russell Shaw and Wendy Shaw, Tim Cusick, Steve Chater, Jeff Lucas is the reason I got in that room. All these people that have made a big impact on my career. And they literally opened so many doors. Like that day, it was the Arizona Club downtown Phoenix. Fred and I got to come speak on short sales at their mastermind event. And then they let us become members of their mastermind. And like, I look at that one day and that group of people that then set in motion so many other doors that have opened for me over the last 15 years. It's like, I can't count it. Like I can't count how many doors have been opened because of that.
Right.
And so we've always just been on a kind of like, it's been important to us to always be able to do that for other people.
Well, it comes full circle from how we even started. Was you met the teacher that was doing a give back.
Now I'm the old guy.
And now you're the one doing the give back.
That's not real.
That's
like we were talking about Ari, or our buddy Ari earlier, like he's 21, 22. Like I was like, damn, I'm probably now I'm older than Curtis was the day I met Curtis. And at the time, I like to tease Curtis about being older than me. But at the time, Curtis he was already a legend. Like that guy had already been selling hundreds of homes a year when not many people were doing that. And so, I think about, yeah, that's come
It's
from
now
full circle in a lot of ways.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, thanks,
Cool.
man. I
Yeah,
appreciate you
dude.
coming
Thanks
in.
for having me in
Yeah,
here.
appreciate
Love
it, brother. Thank you.